Hi, greetings. I'm Dr. Ask, and I'm here at my wonderful healing center. Kitchen. I said healing center. I'm so sorry. I'm used to being in my healing center. For whatever reason, it said it had a problem with loading the thumbtack. How you doing, Chris? Um, so today I hadn't been on here in a long time because I had a apple and my apple stopped being my friend. So I had to I don't know if I upgraded. I guess I kind of did as a HP. I don't know. HPs and apples are two different things. It's like a hi, how you doing? Apples and that are like two different things. So I don't know. So anyway, I call myself upgrading to from that apple because the apple was kind of used. This is brand new. Well, it's brand new out of Walmart. How about that? Anyway, so greetings everybody. I'm Dr. Ask. I don't know if you all know me, but hopefully most of you all do. And if you don't, you will get to know me throughout these videos. And gracious enough is that I didn't have to upload that particular program like most people had to do. I just kind of clicked right on and it came right on. So isn't that cool? So yay! Okay, anyway. So anyway, I was going to talk about adoption and just to share a couple of things. I really don't like sharing my personal life as much, and I guess it's a really how you doing, sis? It's really sensitive for me to talk about my personal life because again, we have haters out there who would like to use things against you in the YouTube streets. And I'm just not in for that. So mind your business. But anyway, I'm sharing information. So judge, I don't care. So with that said, is that many times, hi sis, hey SL, hey Annette, hey Chris, and the other person in the shadows. So a lot of giving Sundays, you have everybody has a story, and everybody has a thing, childhood that they went through, and so here's partly mine. I'm going to share some things, and I'm going to explain to you why I'm sharing this. So anyway, so my childhood, I grew up in a two-parent home. My mother was pretty much what was one of the best people I knew. She's a Cancer zodiac sign, and so all know how that can be. Well, if you don't know, let me break it down. They're very sweet people, but they have their quirks. My mother would was really an excellent manipulator. I enjoyed her manipulation in the sense of she really was a sweet, kind-hearted person, and she was the type of person that her manipulation was really for the benefit of making people move around her. So, for example, she wanted me to aspire to be a teacher. Believe it or not, my mother wanted me to be a teacher because she was a teacher, right? And so she would put me in situations where she would make me go to school with her and grade her papers and things like that. How you doing, Fisher? How you doing? Cassandra? Is that how you say your name? I'm bad with names. So things like that. So I would find myself having to do that. And then she would even bring some of the students home, but that would get on my nerves. But nevertheless, I worked with that. So basically my father was a hard worker. He was a great provider and still is to this day, although it's him by myself. My mother recently passed, well, not recently, probably about 2 years ago. My mother transcended. And I really and I think throughout that period, I wouldn't say I never really mourned. It wasn't a mourning process because I think my mother prepared me for her death. So let me say that. So it wasn't a thing where I had to mourn her death or feel a certain kind of way because she already prepared me. She's like, look, I'm gonna die. And because I'm gonna die, you need to do this XYZ. And so because of that, I was pretty much prepared for her death. So at her funeral, everybody was crying and I was just kind of looking at them like, why are y'all crying? And I just kind of acted as if it was another day, and I probably think that was really strange. But again, I don't see death the way most people So and certain people, like for a child to die, or for certain people that you didn't expect that were going to die. If you already know someone's going to die, then you're of course going to be a lot more prepared for it. Okay, and so that's what happens in a lot of transitions. And then again, when you are like myself, when you see death in a different light. So let me not. I ramble, y'all, so don't mind me. Okay. With that said, is that pretty much in my life, um, my parents were pretty good parents. I had a really good childhood. There were certain struggles that I didn't face. It wasn't financial struggles with my parents, but I had certain struggles. But the struggle wasn't necessarily about my parents or my parents did anything wrong. It was about my personal struggle and person of my personal struggle. And what I did appreciate was that I was adopted. So my parents, and I'm not telling my parents' story because that's their story that they need to tell, and it's not my. I don't have the right to do that. So I'm gonna tell you my story. Okay. So I was adopted, and my parents wanted children, and so they went to this foster home. I don't know if they took tests because I never really talked to them about that, about the test taking and different things that they went through in adopting me. But they adopted me at the time of 6 months. So I have found out was through, I think I had to do something in school or something, and I asked my mother, why don't I look like y'all? Because like they was the people at the teacher at the preschool was saying that I didn't look like my parents because my parents are dark skinned, which are my parents over here on this particular wall. Ugh. See, this is pretty much my parents. See that right there? That too. Okay. Anyway, so let me get back to my point. And this is some of my family, not all, because I had two more grandchildren from there, so you can kind of see. Anyway, okay. I don't know why my son didn't comb his hair on that picture, but that I think they should have told him. They should have had him comb his hair before he took that picture. But his hair was everywhere, but whatever. So, at any rate, so for me, in growing up being adopted, I think that's when things began to change for me. And I was in preschool, and that was pretty much an insecurity of mine throughout my whole entire life of being adopted, and the whole fact of just imagine. I don't know if anybody can relate with this, but just imagine being in a room, and every time you come into the room, you feel like people are whispering or talking about you or saying this or saying that. In some cases, I'm sure they were talking about me because I was something else as a child. And I'm sure it was all in my mind, right? But when you're young and growing up with that, so my parents basically told me the truth. They didn't try to sugarcoat it. They didn't lie to me. So at least they did that. I appreciate that. Again, I had a good life. I can't complain. I can't say that my parents were abusive, toward me, because they wasn't. I had really good parents. But I had a lot of struggles in my life. I had a lot of mental struggles because of not knowing where I came from, or where my parents were. Who were they? Did I have brothers and sisters? Um, did they live around the corner? And especially, and this is really crazy that I would really think about this, but when I would get in trouble, when I get on punishment, my mother would whoop my little butt, um, I would like, where's my real mama? Hey, come get me. You know what I mean? And just silly things like that. And so I would go through that, and I would kind of, it left a lot of insecurities. It grew. I grew into this young girl to having a lot of insecurities, especially around teenage years. Teenage years, it was the worst for me. And then going into adulthood, and then when I started having children, and that's part of the reason why I did have children early, to be honest with you, because I wanted to feel connected to someone. And that's kind of a jacked up thing to do as a teenager, because I was a teen mom. But I started having children. I still went to school. I still graduated early, and yada yada yada. And my parents were very supportive toward that mission, because if without them, I wouldn't been able to do anything. So none of this is against my parents, but for me, it was a lot of insecurities. It was just to the point where I didn't really trust people. I had abandonment issues. I didn't really know who I could rely on. I know I could rely on my parents. And then just like silly things people would say sometimes. When I remember when I was coming up, and just to kind of go back to that, when I was coming up, how you doing, Sister Ashley? I would come back to going back into when my parents were introduced me, and people would look at me and my parents strange, like they can't have a brown skinned daughter. You know what I mean? Like I couldn't look a certain type of way. I didn't have my mother's or my father's features, and they would look and they would be like, "That's your daughter." You know what I mean? Are you sure? You know, that kind of thing. And then, it's just like having biological children. If you have a biological child, you're not gonna say that's my adopted daughter. That's my biological child. Who says that? Do you say this is my biological child? No. So, and experiencing that. So that was somewhat traumatic for me in growing up. That was like one of my biggest fears when I started to have children, and my children would always ask me, like, because my children, we were very open. And see, y'all gotta remember, I'm 46 years old, so back in the 70s, in the 80s, and the 90s, adoption was taboo. Adoption wasn't something that people bragged on. It was like a secret. Like I wasn't really allowed to say that I was adopted. And because my mother had certain feelings for that. She was very protective over me, and over herself as well, because I wasn't her biological. She treated me probably better than she probably would have treated a biological. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm going to tell y'all, my mother was the truth. My mother, oh my God, my parents, I mean, every time I messed up, my parents was there. Every time I needed to go shopping or whatever I need to do financially, they supported me. Whatever I wanted to do, if I wanted to jump off the airplane, I'm like, okay, come on. I'd be like, I don't know about that. Let me think about that. And then she'll come in there and we'll be jumping off the plane together. And I had a wonderful parent. I had wonderful parents. So understand me when I say the things that I'm saying. That it was sometimes a bit of a pain there sometimes because of not knowing where I came from and not knowing, like, who do I trust? You know what I'm saying? Who do I trust? Where do I go to? And then I would start to make a lot of mistakes, a lot of unnecessary mistakes, and to the point where I would always try to find a family. I would always try to find friends who wasn't in the best case for me. So I can relate to a lot of the people. When I clown Carbon Nation, I'm gonna tell y'all something. I can relate to uh Velvet and all these different folk. And that's why I be hard on them, because I can relate to them, because I wouldn't say I was in a cult, but I would say I was in a organization that had cult like energy, right? And so it would be painful for me to, every time I find out, I would be too trusting of, and then I got to the point where I would be looking for friends. Not that I was paying friends off, because I wasn't paying them, but I would pretty much trust them too much, and I would trust them with my business. I would trust them with certain things that with my energy. And it's just a lot of times where I shouldn't have never trusted a lot of these folks. A lot of these folks wasn't worthy of my trust, right? And I would try to find friends, and then the next day I would fall out with them, or I would fall out with them because I found out they would be talking behind my back and things like that. And they'll be trying to use my energy or use me for certain things that I'm able to do, right? Um, because I have been popular in different ways, right? And so in joining these different organizations, I didn't join just one organization. I joined multiple organizations, still looking for this family. I swear to God, y'all, still looking for this family, still trying to find this love, jumping into this relationship because I'm still trying to find this love, because I wanted to be loved and shine away from my cousins. I have a huge family. My parents, a piece. My father, as well as my mother, had multiples of sister siblings. My mother they were probably like 17, 18, 20. You know what I mean? Because in the Mississippi and the South, that's what went down. They had multiple children. My grandmother was pregnant at the same time my aunt was. So my cousin and my aunt are the same age. And I'd be like, you need to call her auntie. I ain't calling her auntie. We the same age. So what? So yeah, my grandmother was getting it in. But anyway, we gonna talk about that. But just the thought of that. Oh, anyway. So from that, I would always look for family, and my family would be like, "Come to the family reunion, come be with us, come enjoy us, and come." And I always felt like an outsider. I'm like, I'm not going, and I would always cling to my children. I would always cling to my children, and I got to the point where I started getting angry with my parents, and I went through the phase of anger. I was really angry because I would be like, and I didn't understand why I was so angry because again, I just told you all I had the most loving parents. My father was stern, but he was still loving. He's a Taurus, so I'm a Taurus too, so I can relate. But he was stern, but he was still loving. My father hugs me now, and it's like weird. I'm like, what are you hugging me for? It's just like so strange. My father hugs me now. He gives me hugs and tells me he loves me. It's just so weird. But I knew he loved me coming up, but he just wasn't really a hugger. I'm not really a hugger. I wasn't really a hugger to my children until they got older. My daughter would make me hug her. But I wasn't really a hugger. But anyway, that's another story. My daughter get on her and she'll tell you, she'll be like, I wanted affection in you. I'm like, girl, you got love. Shut up. But anyway, that's her story. So long story short, well, I'm trying to make it a long story short. So it was just a lot of insecurities that were there, and I always found myself trying to find this family in other people, in friendships, in relationships. And then when I got married, this is my second marriage. I got married. And the first time I was trying to find a mother in my mother-in-law, and it just wasn't the same. That's a that's a whole nother story. But it wasn't the same. Not that she didn't like me or love me or whatever. That's not even important at this stage. But I would always just look for it. I would beg for it, like, please love me, love me, love me, love me, y'all love me. And it just wasn't the same. And he had siblings. My ex-husband had siblings, and I wanted them to love me and see me as their sister. And I wanted, when I had birthday parties or when I had something, if they didn't come or they showed up late, it would really hurt my feelings. And always around my birthday, I would get really depressed and sad. And I don't know why. I just would, I know why now, but of course back then I didn't know why. I would get depressed and I would lash out at people, and I was just angry, 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 right? And my mother would, always and when I got to be a teenager, my mother would always go on these bowling tournaments right before my birthday, but she would leave me a gang of money and a gang of things to do, and I could do whatever I wanted to do. So it wasn't that, but it's just I don't know why I didn't say, hey mom, I want you to stay here. But I don't really think that's what it was. What it was is that I felt really depressed around those times, and I didn't want to be bothered. And my mother would have to force me to come over around my birthday when I grew older, and just different things like that. And so it was like a big struggle for me. And so I got involved in a lot of in certain relationships that I would have never gone into, because I always wanted that love, and not just, I'm not just talking about sexual relationships, but I'm talking about friendships, like, platonic friendships. And just a lot of people I shouldn't have never been friends with, because I was searching for that love, and I was searching for them to give me something. I look like a big turtleneck, but I'm not that big. So I would always find myself, hey, craving for love. And finally, let me tell y'all what made sense for me. Y'all remember that movie Antoine Fisher? Woo! I cried and cried and cried. I'm talking about boo boo, and I'm not really a crier. First of all, I don't even want to get teared up talking about it. But when I seen that movie, I'm like, man, I understood that. I understood what he was saying, except for the abuse part, because I think my parents didn't abuse me or anything like that. But still, I could relate to that. I could relate to the pain he felt, and did you miss something? And so they gave me my mother when I turned 16. She gave me this non-identifying information. So I looked on it, and it was just like really dry. I couldn't drive. She was like, I want her to have a better life. I'm a sophomore. I'm a B average student. I want to continue with my life. I'm like, damn, that's it. She didn't write a paragraph. She didn't leave. Y'all seen those movies. She didn't leave no keys. She didn't leave no necklace, no gold chain, no I heart love you, anything, that I would yeah, that I could really feel connected to, that I could really bond to. And it's just really, really was painful with that. I'm like, damn, that's all you gotta say. She ain't leave no name, where to find her when I wanted to, where to find him when I wanted to. Nothing, nothing. So here I am, this child, this female child, growing up in St. Louis, and still trying to find myself. Let me tell y'all something. I'm gonna keep it real. I'm gonna keep it real. I didn't really find myself until I hit my late 30s. And then that's when I started really working on myself, really, really working on myself and trying to find an identity, because I never understood what my identity was. And finally, one day, I don't know what happened. I was on my aunt's house, and she was always good to me. She just wanted me to go to church, and they got on my nerves. But it wasn't, and I just don't want to go to church. I mean, what child want to go to church? She'd be like, well, y'all can go out to the club, but when y'all wake up come Sunday, we going to church. And I hated that. I'm like, God, why do we gotta go to church? Because it's not like 2 hours. You be there all day. Because she was heavily active in the church. I'm like, oh my God, no. And everybody probably on here has a good old church story. But let me tell y'all one. So I'm gonna tell y'all one. I'm gonna go back to what I was talking about. So one day I was one of my friend's house, and her mom was pretty cool, and I had a good time. But her mom was, again, really good church goer, faithful church member, usher at the board, and all that good stuff. And so she told me, she wanted me up front. She said, "Look, my daddy, the choir, our regular choir is out of town. So my daddy, sings in a choir, and her daddy really couldn't talk." I'm sorry. I used to tell my mom this story, and she'd be like, "You know what? You're gonna burn in hell. You keep saying this stuff, but whatever." Again, I laugh at things I'm not supposed to. I find humor in a lot of things I probably should, but I do. So I went to the church, and I was just like, okay. And the choir started singing, and I just started laughing. And with my laughter, what I would do is I would kind of was falling on the floor, rolling around because I was laughing so hard. And they thought I was having the Holy Ghost, so they started fanning me. Anyway, I know that was so wrong. My mother was like, she said, "Girl, that's so wrong. You should never do that. Hello, how you doing? Hello, all things are natural." Anyway, so I just started laughing and laughing and laughing and laughing. I know I should have been ashamed of myself. My mother said, "You ought to be ashamed of yourself," but she laughed too, so whatever. Anyway, so let me go back to my story. So again, when I saw that movie, that really triggered something in me. And so at that point, I went to my parents. And when you're born in 73, you can't really research who you have to go and get your adoptive parents' information. Have to get them to sign off like it's okay for you to research for your biological parents. So yeah, no, I am, research for your biological parents. And that was like really a sensitive subject for my mother, because my mother would always tell me this story, and I'll tell you and I'll share it with you all. She would always tell me that her and my father went to this foster home, and they saw me, and I was just brown skinned. I guess I was fairly light back then. I wish I don't have a picture down here, but I can go upstairs. My daughter ruined my family, my photo thing when she was young, but we're gonna talk about that. And she's 27 years old. I still talk about that to this day. But anyway, so I was probably Probably light. I was lighter than I am now. Um, but from that, uh, so I would go, and they didn't really want to adopt me at the time because I was too light and my parents were dark. They're not that dark, but they're dark, dark skin. It's not even that dark. And if it was, so what? Black is beautiful, right? Right? So any rate, so they didn't really want me because I was too light. I was too light for them, and I couldn't pass. Because again, back in the 70s and in the 80s, adoption was taboo. It's not as accepted as it is now. When people adopted children back then, it was saying that you couldn't have children, or something was wrong with you, or whatever the case was, or somebody, a teenage child gave a child up, or whatever, drugs, whatever, it was taboo. It wasn't an accepted situation back then. And so back then it wasn't really discussed. Once you were adopted, you were adopted. You didn't talk about it until such time, if your parents even bothered to tell you. And more than likely, they only told you on their deathbed, right? But my parents were the opposite of that. But still a very sore subject for my mom. So I went to her and I was like, look, I want to know who I am. I want to know where I came from. She's like, you know who you are. I was like, no, I really want to know who I am. I don't know who I am. And I really, like I said about the identifying information. So again, once I seen that movie, I really was like, hey, mom, I really want to know where I came from. And she just was like telling me the story. So she saw me. Let me go back. So when they saw me at the foster home, because I was like 6 months, I was like a little baby. Okay. So she saw me and my father, and she said that she was like, yeah, she cute, but I don't think she gonna pass. So they wind up going home, going to sleep. She tells me this all the time. I used to tell her to tell me the story. When I felt insecure, I'd be like, Mama, tell me the story, tell me the story. So she said, when her and my father got back home and they would go to sleep, they went to sleep, and then she woke up, and her and my father both woke up in the middle of the night and said, let's go back and get that baby. I'm like, Mama, I don't know. Some of the story, my mother was a good storyteller, but I don't know actually how it went, but this is what she told me. She said that she woke up the next morning, they went back and got me. They went ahead and adopted me. They had to go through the foster, care and all the good stuff, but they gave me a forever home. It's what they call it now. Okay, I'm gonna tell you how I know what they call it now. But anyway, they wanted to do a forever home with me at that point. But so this was the struggle. I was like, man, I battled through this, and it was so painful, right? So I asked her, and she said, okay. And then she told me again how she chose me out of all the children, because they had a lot of children in the foster home. I wasn't the only baby in there. They had other children. They had dark skinned children. That probably could have passed, but she felt like I was the special one, and she chose me out of everyone, right? And so she told me that story again, but it wasn't in a way where how I'm telling you now. It was kind of, passionate, because she felt some kind of way. And I just was like, why is she tripping about me wanting to know about who I am, where I came from, and that kind of angered me. And so going forward, as I began to really start trying to research and find who my parents are, I don't know, one day I just woke up. I'm telling you, because it was like finding a needle in a haystack, but yet it wasn't. But yet it's not. How you doing, Purple? But yet it's not. It was like a needle in a haystack, but yet it wasn't. But then I got to the right, before I got to the area of really finding that, something in me just said, what difference does it make? Did they take care of you? Good to see you too. Did they take care of you? Did your biological family take care of you? Did they give you food? Did they come talk to you when you broke up, when you got your first heart broken, when you was with a boy? Did they talk to you when you lost your virginity? Did they talk to you were they there when you gave birth to your children? Did they pay for your hospital bill? Because my parents actually paid for my first child to be born. Okay. My mother was in the delivery room when I had my youngest son. You know what I mean? I don't recall, because that's another story. But, nevertheless, this other biological person wasn't even in my life, probably didn't think about me at that point. And why am I angry again? I had a really good life. I said I had a really good life. I had a really good life back then. And why am I really angry? Who am I really hurting? Am I hurting my biological mom? No, because she don't even know that I'm hurting. She don't know what I'm going through, and but who am I hurting? I'm hurting my parents, my adopted parents. So I don't even call them my adopted, but my parents, the parents that gave me life. Uh, yeah, it did. I'm telling you, I could relate. And so I'm like, I'm not hurting anybody. I'm lashing out at my children. I'm lashing out at everybody around me who don't deserve it. And most of all, and more importantly, who am I really hurting? I'm hurting myself. I hurted myself for so many years. So many years. I went through so much pain because of not understanding who I was. And I could bring you around my parents now, my father, because my mother is transcended. But I could bring you around my father. Hi, Darrell. I can bring you around my parents now. My parents, you could see how my father responds to me. A lot of people was like, "Girl, your father really look," but you don't know. You don't see it when you're going through it. I mean, you don't understand it until you going through the battle. And one day, I was talking to my aunt and my daddy's older sister. Yeah, press the like button, y'all. One day I was talking to my aunt and I was like, "Hey, whatever I said to her," and she looked at me and she said, "You might not be us biological, but when I first saw you, I knew you was us." And that's just really the aunt that I used to go to church with. And so from that, I really didn't give a damn about finding out anymore. It didn't really bother me to know where I came from because I know where I'm going. I have bigger expectations about where I'm going, and once you get past all of that pain, and when it's right for me to know, then it will happen for me to know about my biological family. I really don't know a relationship with them. I just want to know because I already have a relationship. I already have a mom and a dad. I already have cousins and aunts and uncles and nieces, and nieces and nephews. I already have these things. So I don't have to really be accepted anymore. I already have a loving mother in law who loves me now, who accepts me for who I am. And I already have a husband who's unconditional with me, who laughs at my jokes. And we laugh together and I make him laugh. And I don't know. Me. So why do I need that? Why do I really need to know? I'm not saying I shouldn't find out later on, but I'm gonna allow it to come to me. The universe always will reveal that. Maybe my children will research that when they feel like they want to, when they really want to know. If they really want to know so bad, they'll research. Yeah, I'm telling you, they spoiled the hell out of me. I think if I would have been a biological child, I'm gonna be honest with you. I think they treated me better as an adopted child than as a biological child. I don't know why. I feel like that. They gave me so much love. My mother kissed me all the time, all the time. I didn't even like. I like. Oh, I wasn't really a hugger. I'm just now as a grandmother becoming a hugger. I'm just now hugging my children a lot of times. My husband actually, when I had a best friend, he passed away. That's another story. But he actually got me to start hugging more. And I hug my children. I kiss my daughter now. I didn't really kiss her back then. And now I'm a hugger. Now I'm a kisser. Now I'm affection. I give affection now. But anyway, so let me tell y'all the point of this story. Why am I sharing this information? Well, I'm about to embark on a story, another story of my own, because I really want to adopt some children. And I've noticed in the way that the system is set up that it's so many children out here that really need love, that need to be adopted. I mean, it is so many children in the system, not just babies, but like children that are 8, that are 9, that are 12, that are 14, that are 15, that are 16, that are even are 17, that need that love, that need that affection, that need someone to hold them, that need someone to tell them it's going to be okay, to give them a second chance, to pay for their college, to so they know that they're not alone, and to do their best. So I don't want people to go through what I went through, because I can relate. Because my parents didn't know. My parents didn't really understand what I was going through. They couldn't. They couldn't. My mother, being in the school system because she was a teacher, she still didn't understand. I had to really try to explain it to her, and I couldn't just tell her one time. I had to tell her over and over and over and over again, because she was too busy in her mind, because it was sore for her. It was sore for her because she wanted, like anybody want biological children of their own, and it just didn't. It said something different, like she wasn't, good enough. That's what she told me, and she was. It just didn't happen in her time because they didn't have all the technology like they do now. And it was just painful. I always wanted to adopt teenagers. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. And I'm just finding myself and going through this process with my husband. It is a unique process, I'm telling y'all. And I'm still like, God. And it's just like, I'm not even being funny. And this is no shade on Caucasian folk, but it's a lot of y'all that's adopting a lot of these black children. Y'all not even adopting y'all own. And it's really hard for us to get our own. But I would like a child that I can relate with, because I can relate to a a a black child, or they say on paper African American. I don't like that term, but African American. Yeah, I enjoy being a mom as well, and I'm a grandmother as well, and and so I saw a little boy that I liked. I don't know what it is about him. He looks probably like a little bad Goober. He's probably bad as hell, but nevertheless, I'm fighting. I'm going to fight to get that little boy. It's just something about him and his energy. And y'all know I'm a reader and I can read energy and things like that. But I feel something special about him. And I feel like there's some sort of a connection. And I think it's necessary to adopt other children. And I really would like more of us melanated black folk to start adopting more children, even if we have raised our children. And maybe if you're in a position to adopt children, I recommend you adopt children. I think it's a great thing. I think, and so I've been watching a lot of these videos because we have to take off these classes through either foster care or through adoption. They have a lot of classes that you have to take, and you should. And I definitely understand why, because I'm like, I welcome the classes. I don't mind the classes because I am learning some things. I'm learning some new things, and also I bring a perspective of being in the adoptive care system. But I don't recall. I don't even remember my foster family, so-called foster family. I don't remember them at all, but I remember the experience of being adopted and what I went through, and I can definitely relate to that. And I would really like to give a child something that they don't have. It's just important for us to. We don't love these children enough as is. They're not. Look at all this crime and all this death and all this. Yeah, all this crime. My grandson is mine too. I'm like, I wish he wasn't, no, but that's that's another story. That little boy get on my nerves. He texting me right now. Shoot, like, what would you want? He's like, Mom, Grandma, what's up with Spider-Man? I don't know. Anyway, so it's not enough people out there who we don't have enough of our children. They're in homes and all this ancestral relationships, sicknesses, and and different things that these children have to go through, and they've been traumatized. Some of them sexually abused, and some of them mentally, psychologically abused, and not loved and not cared for, and thrown away children. And sometimes it just is what it is. Sometimes parents just can't take care of them, and they may have the best intentions in the world. And that's another thing I had to know. And my mother did instill in me, my mother and my father. They was just like, she just couldn't take care of you. They couldn't take care of you. It's not you. You didn't do anything wrong. They just couldn't take care of you. And that's what a lot of times it is with these children. Sometimes the parents are so sick themselves that they didn't want to raise the child to be even worse off with them, you know. Yeah, and drugs. And some of them are going withdrawal, babies that went through withdrawal, and that's really bad. And they would have these different definite issues of going through the system, and then having to pack them. And thank God I didn't have to experience that. I didn't experience that, where they would take their trash bags and be going from home to home to home. And that's sad. How can that child develop real, true relationships if that's just the foster care, and the foster parent can only do so much because they got other stuff going on, and they have to put them in another home. So they taking this trash bag to go to this next home, to this next home, to this next home, to this next home, and they're looking for a forever home. And some of them are, or aging out at like 19 and 20, you know what I mean? And then they're lost, you know? And some of them do pick themselves up by their bootstraps, and some of them don't. And some of them are really, that's why you have people like Nature Boy, you know? That's exactly, and I for one am very sensitive to that. That's why I'm very sensitive to children being mistreated or abused, because there are so many different types of abuse. They're not just you whooping someone's butt, or paddling with one of these. Yeah, don't act like y'all parents didn't have one of these, but sometimes you might have to whack a child with this. I'm just kidding, am I? But excessive force, excessive abuse. Um, some of us go through so much, with these children, and these children are not receiving the unconditional love, and being thrown out in the middle of the streets, and it's just all kind of things out here, and we have to protect our children, and start even helping. Even if you see the neighbor's child, it's even hard out here. You see your neighbor's child not being accepted or loved, and the child is left outside, and all kinds of stuff. I've experienced a lot of that. I would see neighbors' children outside, and there'd be children my children age, and they still out in the streets, and their parents okay with that. But that's all I really wanted to share today. And I would really go here on live and really get into some mushy mushy ushy ushy stuff today, wouldn't I? But I just wanted to share that part with you. I was very, I was like, I don't know, should I talk about this something I should share with people? Because again, I was a 70s baby, and that's not really something that I talk about. I don't really talk about that because I don't really feel like I'm adopted. I mean, my parents, I don't know, it's something that I've left behind a long time ago. I just see my parents as my parents. I mean, they were the bomb. I mean, they were cool people. I mean, shoot, I did what I wanted to do as a child. I had restraint, though. I mean, some things my mom would let me do, but for the most part, as long as I talked it over with her, I mean, she really went for it. It had to make sense, though. But again, start adopting these children, start getting into foster care system, and start getting into really raising or help raising your grandchildren if you have grandchildren. If you have like nieces and nephews that may not be in the best situation, then start becoming a surrogate parent to them. It's just, it does take a special person to take care of children. And so we all have to be special people because these children out here really need us. Even sometimes, and you saying hello to a child, and you be like, "Where you going?" Like a neighbor's child. Sometimes sometimes in that they will always remember that. Think about some of the neighbors and some of the people that along with your parents, if your parents were there for you, that looked after you and how that made you feel. And I don't know, I'm a 70s baby and I'm still somewhat stuck in the 70s because of the way that the 70s were. The 70s was an era of feeling good and of people loving each other and people really looking out for them. And this was really prideful in our community. It wasn't, so much. It was genocide back then, but it wasn't so much as it is now. And I know every generation we say is going downhill, is going downhill, is going downhill, is going downhill. I understand. I help my grandchildren too. I have three and a half. Yeah, three and a half. So it's just I don't know. I'm still trapped in that era, whereas that love that was shared in the 70s, it was just different. And that's not saying that these children now are out of control. Some of them are, some of them are not. I think sometimes, how you doing? Hi, Manny. Thank you. Hi, Sister Manny. Hi. Anyway, so it's difficult. It's difficult to. It's just difficult. We just need to embrace our children. It's getting to be that way nowadays. It's like I don't know. My heart is opening up so much now. I find my heart opening up so much now than it ever had been. Um, to the point where I'm looking at these videos, y'all. I'm taking these classes, and I'm just bawling. I'm just like, wow. And I feel like I have so much love that I can offer a child. Woo, my eyes is getting red. I'm gonna end this video, y'all, because I'm getting very sensitive right now. But anyway, God, why am I on here like this? Anyway, um, my hormones probably get ready to hit that time of the month. But anyway, so I think that we have to give our children Jesus Christ. I'm a Taurus. I know I don't really get sensitive. But we're not giving our children as much love as we need to. And it's just important that we do that. So love a child today. Namaste.